There's donuts on Tuesdays and pizzas on Fridays, which might not seem like much, but it's nice that it's there.
I love Perth. I was born and bred in Perth.
Population 2.1 million, sits on the Swan River, home of the West Coast Eagles and Freo Dockers.
Sunny, lovely beaches.
I would think it's one of the most livable cities in the world, actually.
You know, checking out new restaurants and bars and things like that.
I also actually play in a band with a couple of friends. Two of whom are also doctors, one at Fiona Stanley. We're called Metcall at the moment, actually.
My very first day was really funny because my registrar, who was another tall, handsome brown male who also wore chinos and RM Williams, looked exactly like me. So we'd be walking on a ward round together and everyone would get us confused.
I literally had a constant look of shock on my face. I was smiling the whole time, but I think I was like...
So it was pretty busy, and there were a lot of asking questions to the RMOs around about how to order certain investigations.
Doing ward jobs after hours, managing a fair bit of uncertainty, not sure what to do with blood pressures, not sure what to do with glucose levels. A lot of thinking outside the box and just trying to apply all of the knowledge that you'd obtained in medical school and then trying to blend that into the paperwork of being an intern.
The RMOs were very helpful. They were giving us advice about how to do things.
It was an embarrassing day because I also went to say to a patient, lovely and see you, but instead said, love you. So.
I remember doing a septic screen for a patient and taking some blood cultures, and as I was about to put them in the chute, the nurse says to me, "Oh, stop, don't do that. They'll blow up in the chute."
Fiona Stanley's the biggest hospital in WA, it's where everything's happening. It's the interface between medicine and technology, and it's definitely the way of the future.
Out of the options for hospitals, I chose FSH because it had the nicest sort of reputation, at least from what I'd been hearing.
It's very modern, it's nice and bright inside the corridors. It's actually quite a good view from the upper floors. And actually the computer system, BossNet, and all the other softwares work quite well and actually make our lives a lot easier than reading through poorly handwritten notes.
I find Fiona Stanley an exciting place. It's got a great feel, a great cohort of interns, you never feel alone, and it's just a really good, fun environment.
Fiona Stanley has lots of training on offer, so there's lots of activities that are run by the Medical Education Department. Every Friday we have teaching in the lecture theatre in the Medical Education building. We get some bedside tutorial time, which is extremely valuable with some medical education registrars, and they go around and take you through a few patients and make sure your examination skills are up to scratch, haven't forgotten too much since med school.
Sims training, so I've been to a couple of those and they're a bit anxiety inducing, but they're really good at the same time. It's kind of intentionally kind of like that way so that you can learn a lot while you're at them.
On top of that, in orthopaedic surgery or all surgical specialties, you get perioperative tutorials, so that's also once a week. The orthopaedic registrars will also do a once a week orthopaedic specific intern tutorial.
And medical education also offers workshops once or twice a month, and they're very practical and I highly recommend them.
My name's Vanessa and I'm the head of service for the emergency department. You will be able to work in a state-of-the-art department with all the bells and whistles. With that comes an enormous variety of patients, so you can see anyone from a 1-day-old right through to an 101-year-old. You can see children, obstetrics, and the whole gamut of sort of adult presentations from mental health and everything in between. So we have a really robust training system for all of our levels of medical staff in ED, but for our junior doctors we have weekly training, and over the course of your 10 weeks with us you can attend more than half of those. That's somewhere between 2 and 4 hours of training every Thursday, and we cover a broad range of topics to do with all of the sorts of emergency presentations you might see.
I'm the head of paediatrics service here. So at Fiona Stanley we've got paediatric ward, paediatric emergency department, and we also do some paediatric clinics out in the community. Fiona Stanley is obviously the biggest hospital on the site, has an amazing research and clinical exposure, And I think eventually you'll realise how lucky you are to be exposed to so many subspecialties and big specialties as well. And there's some exciting training opportunities.
My name is Colin Song. I'm the Head of Service for the Department of Plastic Surgery at Fiona Stanley Hospital. The best thing at working at Fiona Stanley Hospital is a number of factors. The first is you're working in a spanking new building with the state-of-the-art facilities. We are surrounded by departments and personnel, especially doctors who are well chosen and top of their grade in terms of their competency and in terms of their expertise. So we're well poised to be able to be a top-class quaternary healthcare centre in Perth.
There seems to be a lot of support here for interns. You won't ever feel like there isn't someone that you can turn to ask for help. RMOs and Regis and consultants seem to be very understanding about how it's kind of intimidating when you come out of med school and you suddenly, oh, you're a doctor, you're responsible for things. But when you come here, you realise that there's a sort of a safety net, if that's the way to phrase it, of like maybe if you miss something, you can go back and talk to your RMO and they'll say, oh, maybe you've missed this, or even the consultant will say, oh, don't forget to do this and this as well. So there's always people that you can rely on as a team, which is of course how it should always work in medicine.
I think there's a few reasons to choose a hospital. One is first of all what's close to home. Two is a place that you like. Three is a place with good food. So probably in reverse order.
So my favourite coffee is a skinny mocha from Aroma. Everybody else in the whole hospital just about goes to Icon, but I'm an Aroma girl.
My favourite coffee, Icon.
Long Mac topped up at Icon, always. Maybe 3 a day.
I'm one of the rare doctors who's not a coffee drinker actually. My team normally goes to Aroma and I sometimes get a chai latte, but I'm not really a big coffee drinker or top coffee or tea drinker. Well,
I'm a great fan of Jamaica Blue, and I think I get a good deal and I get a good coffee. Yeah.
They've all been pretty good actually. I've been pleasantly surprised by that. My old hospital, there was only sort of one really good coffee place, and whereas here there's a nice choice.
Icon.
Why Icon?
It has really pretty cups.
Favourite coffee on site?
Free coffee.
The main reason that people should choose Fiona Stanley for their internship is that the environment to work in is amazing. Everyone is super friendly, everyone is super happy to help, and good coffee always helps as well.
Well, good evening and welcome everybody. I'm Alison Jones. I'm the Director of Medical Education here. And this evening's all about discovering the joys of internship through Fiona Stanley and Fremantle Hospitals Group. And I remember just how exciting it is in those final days of being a medical student before you think you're taking this very giant leap into your first days as a doctor. And as the video says, and we will all attest, you're not doing that alone. We're here to help. And one of the differentiating factors in terms of choice of these hospitals is that we do have a very dedicated medical education unit that genuinely puts individual doctor health and well-being and education at the forefront of what we do, because we know that improves patient care. So you'll hear more from us in the course of the evening. Andreas, the Medical Education Registrar, here this evening. Abu from the Medical Education team, consultant and heading up physician training. And I'd like to acknowledge all of the MedEd team that have, taken their time out this evening. Kylie's organised everything. Leah, thank you so much for making all of this happen this evening. And then my next privilege and pleasure is to introduce to you the Chief Executive of our hospitals, Mr. Paul Forden. and thank him for giving up his evening as well to be with us.
So welcome to Fiona Stanley Fremantle Hospital Group. I won't take too much of your time, and I can't follow the video, but first of all, just to acknowledge traditional owners of the land we're meeting on, the land of the Whadjuk people, the proud Noongar nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Fiona Stanley Fremantle Hospital Group is part of what you call a health service provider, and there's a few of these around town. There's one for the north, there's one for the east, there's one for country, there's one for children, and there's one for south. But you notice I didn't say west because you think there's nothing in the west. Well, actually, we also look after Rottnest, so we're probably south and west. So the area that I'm responsible for obviously includes Fiona Stanley Hospital, includes Fremantle Hospital, which used to be a tertiary hospital before Fiona Stanley opened. We've also got Rockingham General Hospital. We've got Murray District Hospital. We've got Peel Hospital, which is currently run by Ramsay, but it's back under our jurisdiction. And then we actually also run all the community services for the whole of Metro. So I think in total we've got about 10, 12,000 staff or something, so it's a bit of a big gig. Spend a lot of money. It's really important, though, that all of us follow some values. And these values are actually decided upon by our staff. And that's really important. So care is an obvious one, being compassionate. You know, it's such a critical part of looking after patients, but also looking after your colleagues. Teamwork. I keep saying to people, I could have the best surgeon in the world, but on their own, they actually can't do anything. It's the whole team that comes together. Integrity is so important, and it is actually so important because we've all been let down by some colleagues elsewhere in health recently. Last year, there was one of them in the press for a huge amount of fraud. That tarnished everyone and made us all feel down. So integrity is really critical. We strive for excellence in everything we do here, and that's unashamedly about that. But just as important, we've got to respect each other, no matter who it is, whether it's myself, whether it's the cleaner, whether it's somebody in the middle, mutual respect everywhere. So they're the values that our staff came up with. And our motto here is excellent healthcare every time, because that's what every single patient expects and should get. A couple of quick things you might not know about Fiona Stanley Hospital. The emergency department is the biggest in town, the biggest in the state. Fiona Stanley is the biggest hospital in the state, easily. So 20 beds on, 20 wards with 24 beds on each ward. Uniquely, 20 of those beds on each ward are single rooms with ensuite, and 2 rooms are double. And the number of times I've actually wheeled patients from ED up to wards, if we get a little busy, I'll sometimes help out and do some real work. And a couple of patients have actually said to me, I didn't want to go to the private hospital. The wards are really good. We've got a number of state-of-the-art services, whether it's burns, whether it's the transplant services, etc. We've got 30 ICU beds, which are state-of-the-art. We've got 10 just actually dormant at the moment, waiting for when we need them to open them up, so they're already pre-built. We've got a fantastic CCU. We've got brilliant obstetrics units, etc. Then Fremantle, whilst it's an older building, is a very special place. You can get there's just fantastic services there, and you can get a great education, training, development from there as well. So they also run a lot of services. We focus Fremantle on psychiatry, care of the elderly, and surgery, day surgery and elective surgery. So that's the raison d'etre for there. Just a couple of quick facts. I'm not going to read them all out, but so you know, we deliver about 4,500 new people into the world every year. With COVID, that's increasing rapidly. I wonder why. We've got the biggest emergency department. We've actually got the second biggest children's department in town. You've got PCH, and then we actually have a separate ED for children here as well. One of the things there it says, and this tells me something about our organisation, at the very bottom it says, last year we did 28,400 telehealth outpatient appointments. That means that people didn't have to come in for outpatients. They could ring in, we'd do a video conference call or something. During the first 4 months of COVID last year, that figure went up to 100,000. The organisation just flipped it around and says, we can do this differently. And we actually had people stranded around the world, and we'd actually follow through with their longer-term conditions by doing outpatients digitally for them. So it's a hugely responsive organisation. Healthcare isn't just about delivering service. It's about service, research, and teaching. And research is a really key part of our focus. So we've got amazing researchers here already. You see some of the specialties we focus in: cardiology, hematology, burns, etc. But more importantly, we try to get everybody to have an interest in research, and we're growing that everywhere. We are the most digitally enabled hospital in town by a country mile. If you go to the digital medical record we call BOSNet, that allows you to view a patient's records going all the way back. If you want to look at the diagnostics, you can call them up. If you go into our ICU, it's the most advanced ICU system there is for digital. And actually, we don't have paper. Yeah? It is paperless, paper-free, should I say, not paperless. So for interns in SMARS, and I hope you'd like to choose us, not only do we have the great coffee, and I'm an aroma boy, but we have great coffee. I think there's about 7 or 8 coffee shops in total. What we have, I think, is interns being very close to patient care. And that's really important for the future of your careers. We like to give you the best opportunities we can on learning. That's really what we're passionate about. And I hope, therefore, you'd consider us for the future. But thank you.
My name is Abu Abraham. I'm a consultant physician, nephrologist, and lead the physician training program. So I'm here to convince 100 people to become physicians. Look, I'm incredibly proud to be a physician, and one of the things I need to sort of emphasize is you don't have to sign up on the sheet outside today to be a physician. It took me a couple of years before I realized that that's what I wanted to do. And do not think that that is a defect. Right? It is a very, very understandable pathway. We see interns as part of our team, especially, to be honest, a lot of internship is paperwork. But it's important that you guys put your hands forward as interns and try to be part of the team. Things that I tell my junior doctors are, if you're an intern, try and work as an RMO. If you're an RMO, try and work as a registrar. If you're a registrar, try and work as an AT. So we're keen to see people who are pushing, and that gives us confidence to give you more room to move. Okay. So as an intern, you'll be very closely supervised. You have a lot of opportunities to ask questions. A few things to remember: a lot of the patients that we see in, I would rate us as a quaternary hospital, are extremely complex. Right? They're very, very complex skills where you have to break down individual problems, and they often interact with each other. You will need consultant or senior registrar support for a lot of the decisions, but doesn't mean you should not try to break down the issues and solve what you can, and we highly encourage that. But also a corollary to that is, I highly encourage everyone, as you become RMOs and registrars, do move between the other hospitals. Rockingham, Peel, what you see there at is very appropriate for PGY2, Y3 levels. You need to see patients who come directly to hospital first with undifferentiated problems. Because often patients who hit us are so complicated, that's why they come to us, right? So I encourage people to move around within our hospital system to gain the exposure. Again, try and read around your patients. Particularly at internship, do not pick up a textbook and try to read from page 1 to 1,000 by the end of the year. Just spend half an hour reading about a patient you've seen that day. It will stick in your head. Right? You do not have to revise that after that. If you're keen to become a physician, get to know the physicians you work with. Look for opportunities for research and develop yourself further from there. There are a number of rotations that interns go through, and as I emphasized earlier, they're very, very well supported. So for example, in nephrology, we have our interns posted across our various specialties, like at the IE, There's an intern even in dialysis. But we know that the dialysis intern will not be able to make complex decisions. So there's a registrar always supervising that intern over there. And that's the same across the hospital. Just a couple of insights. I'm getting old and I need to share insights as I get old. Right. We're seeing training moving from the time you spend in hospital or medical school to competency-based assessments. So for the physicians program, we're actually from, I think in a year or two, going to go to an app-based, competency-based assessment, which is going to change the way we do our training program. That app is still a bit dodgy, but that will get better. You're going to find yourself using technology in very, very high levels in your work, and you need to get comfortable with that, okay? This is a big thing that is happening. Our care is shifting from inpatient work to outpatient work. I can manage vasculitis entirely as an outpatient. No problem, it's very, very easy. What I cannot manage as an outpatient, and which is majority of our patients, you have vasculitis, you have an infection, you're bleeding, and you have a heart attack, I can't walk. Those are the patients we have as inpatients. So work is entirely shifting to an outpatient domain. We're increasingly having to be conscious of the cost and resources. I know we're not in India, but we still have to be aware of those things because a lot of medications we use are expensive. I'd just like to highlight two examples that have changed in the course of my day. Now I'm 10, 15 years out of becoming a registrar. So for example, there's a condition called Alport syndrome. We used to always define it as males in their 20s with deafness and renal failure. The women were always a carrier, they were safe. But as time's gone by, I've now got a 44-year-old man who I just met today again. He had what we call an FSGS on biopsy, which we shrugged our shoulders 10 years ago what this was. We then realized his brother had the same condition. So now there is genetic screening, and we found that he's actually got Alport's. Right, so we're now seeing the shift in medicine where you're finding genotypes presenting as phenotypes we never thought previously did. So we are more, it's getting more common. We're moving towards that sort of precision medicine. I wouldn't say exactly, but we are moving towards that. The result of this is this man's sister wants to donate. So she's come forward and is actually Medicare subsidized for testing. Unfortunately, she's negative. Right. Not only can she be a donor, she's now sure her children are safe. Okay. We've now gone to 24-hour hospitals. So again, back in my day, we had two medical registrars at night. One person ran the med calls and the other person ran ED. That's how we used to be. And if you came with a stroke, we'd do a CT head, you didn't have a bleed, we'll say, yep, here's an aspirin, we'll see you in the morning, there's nothing much we can do. But that's now moved to the concept of time is neuron. The moment a patient looks like a stroke, there's a stroke call activated. ED are ready for the patient like you're ready for an ST elevation MI. And within half an hour, there's a decision made based on clinical assessment, very good CT scan as to whether you're doing a thrombectomy or a thrombolysis. And what that means is we now have a roster for neurology where previously it was just an on-call service. So things are really, really shifting in medicine very rapidly. This is just about BPT. If you do BPT, you'll do 36 months. And if you do get in, I'll harass you for those 36 months. We have a well-established physician training program. There are a lot of teaching opportunities for both the written and the clinical exam. We've always had excellent outcomes in both the written and the clinical exams. I don't hesitate to say that this year we did not do as well as we usually do. We reflect on that, and we will work on improving that. And that's something we have to acknowledge. Just an old last slide, promise. Just an old man's things, reflections that I wish I knew as an intern. Try and plan 3 or 5 years ahead. When you're coming into specialty training positions, they are no longer a fireside chat. You have to come up with a reason why we need to take you. Try and develop a skill. We all become very good at seeing patients and doing medicine. Try and develop a skill on the side along with that. Might be research, might be audits, because that's becoming quite important. Do something substantial, because when you come for a consultant interview, that substantial product will actually come to your interview. Because let's say there's a physician position. Everyone's an FRACP. Why should Fiona Stanley take you when there are 4 FRACPs for one position? So that's what you slowly start planning. There's no point doing it the night before the interview, okay? So set yourself up. The point about do not be in a hurry is that reflection about committing to neurosurgical training from the day you set into hospital, otherwise I will not be successful. Well, some people are fortunate to know that, but take your time, be sure that's what you want to do. For you have 35, 40 years, you don't want to be getting up in the morning thinking, oh my God, why did I go down this pathway? Finally, we have Subway. I wish I had taken shares in Icon. He sells 72 bottles minimum of the 2-liter ones, right? I should have jumped in with him. We have robots somewhere. We should bring them out next time. And thanks very much.
Good idea, sit up the back. I knew I was going to be coming down here too. It's a long, lonely trip down the stairs. Hi, Oscar's my name. I'm one of the general surgeons here at Fiona Stanley and Fremantle, and I'm the head of the acute surgical unit and trauma services. I did my internship at Fremantle back in the day, and I've always seen myself as a Freo guy. Sort of went away and did some other things, and when I came back to specialty training, things had changed. But I think a lot of what made Freo great we brought across here. I was a pretty good intern, I think. I think maybe I peaked in intern year sometimes. But the thing about internship is if you're doing it right, it's hard. 12 months is not a long time at all to go from being entirely supervised at all times to being remotely or partially supervised, or depending on what you go into, maybe even entirely unsupervised. But you can get through, you can put up with almost anything for 12 months and you can get through any kind of hardship so long as you've got a good crew around you. And so I guess I'm here to tell you why you should make us your crew and come and do your internship at Fiona Stanley. If you've got an interest in surgical training, Fiona Stanley is definitely the place to be in town. There's a wide variety of rotations available to you as an intern on the screen here. I'm a general surgeon. Most of the rotations there are general surgical, and one of them obviously stands out as the best, which is the ASU. We very much see the interns as not just a part of the team, but really the key part of the team, the closest person to the patient, and we could not do all the fancy, clever things we do without good, solid clinicians looking after the patients on the ward. And I'm sure that goes for the other surgical rotations as well. I want to echo what my colleague said earlier about the importance and goodness, if you can grab the opportunity to get out to some of the other rotations, the other hospitals within SMARS, particularly Rockingham, Fremantle. There's some great opportunities there, and the sort of bread and butter stuff that you need to be really across at the end of internship, you'll probably have better opportunities even to do that at some of the smaller hospitals. So I really encourage you to grab hold of those opportunities if you can. In terms of protected teaching time, so there's I'm sure you've already heard about the protected time for intern teaching every week, at which time you're expected to turn off or hand over your pages, and people know that at those times you're not contactable because you're busy doing something that's very important for your learning. There's also the perioperative tutorial program, which has fallen over a little bit lately thanks to COVID, to be honest, but we're working on getting that back on its feet. There's of course the hospital grand rounds and the surgical multidisciplinary team meetings, which are there really is something for everyone. You don't have to be a senior registrar or a fellow or sort of peri-exam period. Interns and students certainly benefit from coming along to those as well. Speaking for my unit, our morning handover meetings are, I like to think, at least an educational opportunity as well as a business meeting. And the same goes for the consultant-led ward rounds, as well as the usual kind of ad hoc and on the go and on the run teaching. I said earlier that this is the place to come if you're interested in surgery as a career, but it's also the place to come even if you're not. We understand that surgery is not necessarily for everyone. It doesn't have to be. That's fine. You'll have to do a surgical rotation as an intern, and if what you want to do is come and do the work and learn a little something and not necessarily be seen in theatre and be coming in at 5:30 in the morning so that you can do whatever people do at 5:30 in the morning on the ward, then that's fine. You don't have to do those things. We understand that there is this thing called work-life balance, and your internship is a time, again, like my colleague said earlier, to think about where you want to end up, not necessarily to rush into committing yourself to something straight away. I think I'll leave it there, and hopefully I'll get the opportunity to catch up with some of you guys at the Q&A afterwards. So looking forward to chatting then. Thanks.
Hi everyone, I'm Ian Day. I'm Medical Director of Service 3, which the hospital is divided into these service streams, and underneath the service streams sit various units, and Service 3 just happens to have all of the surgical units, obstetrics, paediatrics and neonates. That's actually irrelevant to what I'm here talking about, which is talking about the emergency department, which I'm actually an emergency physician in as well. I think the clinical work keeps me sane, to be honest, of all of the much more difficult sort of difficulties of steering health. I still remember my intern year, and I'm not going to talk to a lot of slides. I still remember my intern year as one more than I think I remember most other bits of my career. I didn't realise at the time how important it was, but my message to you guys is that your intern year sets you up in so many ways. Most importantly, it allows you to touch on a whole lot of different sort of specialties, because some of you may know exactly what you want to do. Some of you will know right now you have no idea what you want to do. Some of you will think you know what you want to do. But then after experiencing sort of that area in the flesh, you may change. The better your internship, the more breadth you can get during the internship, the more you have a chance for setting yourself up in the right career. And so Fiona Stanley offers, or SMARS and Fiona Stanley, of course, because like all of the others, I think it's an area-wide service, Fiona Stanley being the biggest bit of it, but only one bit of it. It's got, I think, much more breadth than the others. There's very few services you could sign up for that would allow you to do medicine, surgery, emergency medicine, but also potentially touch on obstetrics, paediatrics, neonates, burns, transplant, psychiatry. There's, when you look at the amount of specialties within the SMARS sites, if you actually compare that, there's not much to compare it to. Now, that gives you guys a chance, whether you work in the units or not, you get to touch on those units. You will get to speak to people who work in those units. You will hear from people who work in those units. You will consult those units. You'll get to see some of the sort of inspiring sort of characters in those units. And I think it sets you up to have a much better idea of what you actually want to do. Your internship, you tend to follow on with your resident years, and your resident years, because then people know you, allow you to start applying for resident sort of registrar positions. So your internship is not independent of what you ultimately train in. So I think there's a whole lot of reasons to pick a site that's got an awful lot of breadth. In terms of the emergency department, there's a huge amounts of reasons to embrace emergency medicine at Fiona Stanley. I think emergency medicine for interns is a unique term. There's not many terms where you get to see the patient first, and you get to sort of put your thinking cap on as if you are totally independent, but you're totally protected, you're totally supported, and you don't get to do that a lot. So you can actually go and see the patient, assess them on your own without knowing what's wrong with them, without being preempted. You can come up with a sort of a series of differential diagnoses. You can come up with a management plan, but then you can double check that with the registrar and the consultant. So in a completely safe environment, you can actually start thinking properly and learn how to think as clinicians and learn how to problem solve. So I think my advice is often try and do emergency medicine first. It teaches you how to think and not just sort of follow something predetermined. I think you want to work at a hospital that's showing you the future. You don't want to work at a hospital that's showing you how things have always been done and how things have been done for the last sort of 20 years. You want to be at a hospital. You guys have got much longer careers than anybody who's going to be talking here today. You want to see what the future looks like. You want to see what the future in the specialties look like. So pick a site that's future-driven, that's innovative, that wants to change. And if you look at a lot of things that are happening at Fiona Stanley, you see that. It's not just about the tech. There's no question that we're technologically way in a much better position than a lot of the other hospitals, digital medical records and robots and advanced comm system, and that's only going to get better. So the gap is actually going to widen for a little while. What you also want is a hospital that's future-driven in terms of its models of care. It's sort of much more patient-centric. It's got consumers that are brought right into the fray in terms of developing those models of care. It's looking to do things. It's looking to challenge the dogma that this is always the way we've done things. And FSH definitely does that. In the emergency department, we've got lots and lots of state firsts. We've got state firsts in terms of pathways for the frail-aged. We've just launched digital outreach into the back of the ambulances, so we're actually assessing ambulance patients prior to they arrive and develop a whole lot of new streams of pathways. We're about to have digital inReach into aged care and start fundamentally enabling better models of care for the frail-aged. We've got training programs which are second to none. We've had massive success with exams and trainees coming through. We've got we don't differentiate interns and RMOs fundamentally on the roster, which puts you in that position where you get to work like, the challenge of working like an RMO. I totally agree with, and that's exactly what we let you do. But again, it's in that totally protected, totally supported sort of safe environment. So I think we are blessed in Perth with good hospitals, and I think you're lucky. You're lucky in that it's hard to make a terrible choice in Perth, but there is a better choice, of course. And I think about it carefully. Think about, you want to work where you're going to touch on lots of things that you potentially might find, look, I never realised that was an area that I had so much sort of interest or inspiration from. You want to touch on and work in places that show you what the future looks like. That's what your career is going to look like. You want to work at a place where you can be sort of inspired by people who aren't just turning up to work every day and doing the same old thing. They're actually trying constantly to improve things for patient care and bring the best for what we can. I suppose I better just even check what's on these slides. I've missed something. So about the ED itself, it's by far the biggest and the most complex in Perth by a long shot. That's old data now. We see it's probably 110,000, 115,000 now patients a year at this ED. As said, the biggest paediatric ED outside PCH. FSH and Gold Coast oscillate as the two busiest in Australia. And that's really good if you're an intern in the department, because there is never a day where you don't see sort of really good, interesting stuff. There is always something good happening and things you'll see that you just won't get to see elsewhere. A large number of very complex patients, was what the admission rate reflects. 80 to 90 sort of ambulances a day is not unusual, even the other side. But the things that we're probably, I've touched on all that, the thing we're probably most sort of proud of in the ED is the way we've supported junior staff over the years. That's definitely reflected in our term feedback and the amount of juniors who come back and want to work as junior registrars and come back as senior registrars and then come back even as consultants since we've opened. I think that's been extremely important to us. But also just how we've set the bar in town in terms of that innovation, our ambulatory pathways, our ambulatory medical pathways, now our sort of virtual emergency medicine program, lots of things which have just set the bar for, certainly for WA. And I think we're proud that at every step our sort of junior staff have been part of that growth, part of that innovation and part of that broader team. All right. Thank you, everybody. I'll be around for all the Q&A, so more than happy to engage them.
Hi guys, I'm Andreas, one of the medical education registrars. I've been with the medical education unit for about 3 months now, and I'm continuing on with them for the next year. So I think our goal as the medical education unit really is just to get you guys through your internship, support you through what can be quite a stressful time and provide the best education for you going forward, really targeted at you as interns but also as junior doctors throughout your career and going forward. So one thing I realised when I was an intern is that really medical school is just the tip of the iceberg. So the learning beyond that it's endless. But I think that's a really good thing, and that's a great thing about being a doctor. So the way that I guess we approach it is we're very inclusive and diverse in the teaching program we offer. So as Dr. Aldrich did mention before, we have protected teaching time each week. So Friday midday, you drop your pages or you hand your pages over and you'll meet here for an hour-long teaching session. So this is something we facilitate. We have guest speakers each week. We'll have presenters like Dr. Day coming down to speak about emergency-related problems and very specific problems that you'll see as an intern. You'll get specialty units that we have here, such as burns, cardiothoracics, transplant, all speaking as well about what they offer, but also targeted at the intern level. These may be things that you've not seen before in your medical student career and will be important for you to recognise the major pathologies and issues that can be faced in managing these patients. So beyond your protected intern teaching time, you have lots of other teaching as well that's available at the hospital. So you have your perioperative tutorial program, and you may also have unit-specific teaching associated with that. So if you're doing ENT, you might have some different teaching as well in addition to the perioperative tutorial program. When you're attached to a medical specialty rotation, such as haematology, they often provide extra teaching in addition to the intern teaching that you'd usually get. And when you guys come across or work in the hospital out of hours team as interns, keep in mind you won't be working night shifts doing that, you'll be working evenings. But during that period of time we offer exposure to simulation, and here at Fiona Stanley we have a very high-tech simulation suite. So we've got a high-fidelity mannequin, gives you real-time feedback. It can mimic abnormal and normal physiology, so it's about as real as you'll get to a ward-based simulation, but in the safety of a simulated learning environment. In addition to that, all of you at some point will get one-on-one teaching time with the medical education registrars, where you can talk about very specific issues you haven't been willing to raise before in the past, or you can ask us anything and everything, and we'll do our best to help you along the way. A few other points to mention: there are hospital ground rounds, probably for the more high-level learning, the recent updates in whatever field maybe have come out in the literature. There's also audit and research opportunities if you wish to approach us about that, and then the educational and skills workshops. So the skills workshops we have here are very high-tech once again. We have mannequins in which you can practice lumbar puncture on, practice an arterial blood gas, catheterization, abdominal paracentesis. So these are all done on real-life models, and for example, doing a lumbar puncture, you actually get to see, I guess, water or CSF per se, actually coming back when you are successful in that. So it's a very safe environment to learn the skills that you'll need as an intern and as a junior doctor going forward. and then we also facilitate other workshops through CTEC at UWA, which could be for surgical suturing, nerve blocks, etc. Other workshops that we do have here include communication workshops, so things like breaking bad news, which you guys may not have done yet, but at some point in your career will have to come across. The endocrine and diabetes workshops as well, so we'll have endocrinology advanced trainees giving you one-on-one, small group teaching on how to prescribe and manage hyper or hypoglycemia. And as you'll probably recognise, that the changes in diabetes management between insulins and oral hypoglycemics are changing quite rapidly, so it's a really useful workshop for you guys to come across. Pain and analgesia is another one, safe prescribing and safe dose conversion. This is facilitated by one of our palliative care physicians. Radiology, so basic interpretation of the imaging that you'll be seeing on a daily basis. Then step-up courses. So keep in mind, we don't expect you to go from intern to resident to registrar without any training. Obviously, you'll learn through experience, and I think that's the most important part. But we have very specific structured step-up courses which can help you become a good registrar and identify some of the skills needed for you guys to really thrive in your years as a registrar at this hospital. And once again, there's courses such as Teaching on the Run. They look very good in your CV when you're applying for things like BPT, of course, and great way for you guys to learn how to become effective teachers yourself. So we'll just show a short video about the medical education unit.
First of all, without a doubt, Fiona Stanley is the best. We are the best in Perth, but we are also the best internationally. We have an incredibly motivated, diverse and large team making up our medical education unit staff. And we all work together to deliver more than 300 educational activities free throughout the year.
We really care about our trainees, and the medical education team bend over backwards to support you in a pastoral sense, but also in an educational sense throughout your journey. I really love interacting with young doctors and being part of an educational team that really delivers best patient-centred care.
There's also several workshops that are run through the medical education unit. I myself have participated. I'm in a palliative care and prescribing one, and there's an insulin prescribing one coming up next week, all really handy and practical.
And then also simulation training, where we basically had a MDT team and we got involved with a mannequin and really ran through some life sort of threatening scenarios that might actually face on the ward.
We run weekly healthcare simulation activities up here in the Sim Suite, which are aimed at our hospital out-of-hours team and clinical nurses from all wards in the hospital. Once a month we run the MET level training as well. So you may well meet us running in situ simulations in your department across the whole hospital at Fiona Stanley Hospital.
All of our workshops are delivered with a practical aspect. We have models that allow you to actually do a lumbar puncture, take an arterial blood gas, or shock an arrhythmia and get that sense of satisfaction when you change a patient who's in an unstable atrial fibrillation back to sinus rhythm.
The Med Ed department offers sort of walk-in sessions. They say, if we're ever struggling, we're not getting enough sleep, feeling stressed, overworked, they're very open to discuss these things in a confidential one-on-one sort of environment. And then there's a number of different, resources online, like not just Med Education, but the hospital provides them as well in terms of formal counselling and things.
We all in the medical education unit desperately care about our trainees, and we in particular have medical education registrars who routinely touch base with every single trainee and check that you're okay and whether you need any additional help or support, as well as all the formal and informal educational offerings.
As a department and team, we are very approachable and we're here to listen. and try and build educational opportunities that will help you develop your career and enhance your training opportunities. So feel free to drop us a line, come in and have a chat and talk about what we can offer you to help sort of enhance your career.
Okay, so Professor Jones is now going to come up and talk briefly about the support and wellbeing we offer at the Medical Education Unit.
Thanks, Andreas. Brilliantly done, as always, thanks. So, number one, you cannot be a good physician, clinician, if you don't look after yourself. You have to really have your own health and well-being in mind. And there's a contradiction in that because, of course, as a profession, we work crazy hours sometimes. We work in incredibly emotionally and mentally stressful areas at times, but we do not work alone. We work as a team and there are supports in place. And you will, throughout your intern year, get better and better at recognizing signs in yourself and seeking the support of others, be it friends, family, the MedEd unit, you're supporting RMOs and registrars and consultants or whoever. And you get better at that as your career progresses, and you get better at that self-reflection and self-awareness. We've got a doctors' welfare group. We take that really seriously. Toff, one of our ED consultants, runs that and a member of the medical education team. We run a WhatsApp doc site, which allows access or encourages access to a whole variety of resources that are designed to keep the reflective you well and continuing in your career and chosen profession. We know that it takes a long time to get through medical school. We want to keep you in the profession and get all of your diverse skills and abilities to look after our patients together in the future. So we want to make sure that you stay the very best versions of yourselves. I think that might be, is there one more? Thanks, boss. That's why you have registrars, keep you on your toes, and he's quite right. DIT, Doctor in Training, support pathway. We've got a formally worked through set of pathways to support people. We are strong within the medical education unit in advocating for our junior doctor colleagues, never forgetting that we were junior doctors ourselves and that within our team we continue to have doctors in training. With a strong mentoring program that's largely led by the medical education registrars but supported by my consultant colleagues and myself and the whole medical education team. And you'll get your own RMO or registrar mentor on top of that. So before I finish, I wish you well in 2022, an incredibly exciting year in your medical careers. Extremely challenging career that you've chosen, but one that, quite frankly, I would not swap for $1 million, $2 million, whatever.
Hi, my name is Ellie and I am acting Senior Medical Workforce Officer in Medical Workforce. And this is an overview of what we do in Medical Workforce. Basically, we are the first point of contact if you have any problems or issues. So if you choose Fiona Stanley Hospital and you are successful in your applications, you could be allocated at either Broome, Albany, Rockingham, Fremantle, or Fiona Stanley Hospital.
Sorry, Ellie, I might just, because you've got a quiet voice, I might have to get you to talk into that.
I'm sorry.
Very quiet voice.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect. That's great.
Thank you. So, as I said, if you choose Fiona Stanley Hospital and you are successful in your applications, you are allocated at either Fremantle, Fiona Stanley, Rockingham, Albany, or Broome hospitals. Obviously, Broome and Albany sites are based on preferences only, so if you rank them higher in your term allocations form, which you will receive in the next few months, then you are more likely to get those sites. Rotation matrix has been built so that you are able to gain experience in a tertiary and regional health sites. So you will complete at least one term here at Fiona Stanley Hospital, and everybody will complete one term as well at one of our peripheral sites. At Broome, you would work at general medicine and gen surgery. In Albany Hospital, you will be working in general medicine and Pioneer Health Albany, which is a general practice rotation that you can preference as well. If you are allocated to any of these sites, you will receive accommodation, and your travel expenses to and from the sites will be paid as well. For Broome, you will receive a district allowance as well. Basically, if you continue working with us after completing your internship, these are the you will have the opportunity to work in Fiona Stanley, Fremantle, Rockingham, as well as St. John of God, Murdoch. And we also provide opportunities to our RMOs to undertake term rotations with Silver Chain Community Residency Program through WACS, as well as Department of Health Leadership Program. So these are the term allocations that we offer you. As you probably already know, to complete your internship, you have to do 10 weeks in 10 weeks core surgical, 10 weeks core medical, and at least 8 weeks in emergency department, as well as a range of other approved terms or clinical experience to make up a minimum of 47 weeks of full-time equivalent service. As you can see from the screen, we can offer you rotations through a variety of specialties across our rotational sites. You can also roster in specialty units. These are not the core units, however, they will be counted to your total intern time of 47 weeks. All of these rotations have been accredited by the Postgraduate Medical Council of WA, which means that they've got appropriate mentoring, teaching, and supervision for you. This is an example of what you will be sent out in the next few months if you are successful here. You are requested to rank to rank each available block allocation from 1 to 120. Basically, number 1 would be, I don't know, but you will get your top 10 preference, I promise. Number 1 being your most preferred block allocation, and 120 your least preferred block of rotations. Each block of these rotations generally has a peripheral site. You're having an emergency term, a core medical term, as well as a surgical term. And your 5th term could be one of our specialty units, or maybe you be allocated again to another core terms. Allocations are assigned on a best fit model to ensure every intern has an enjoyable year. And as I said, all your allocations will be through your top 10 preferences, so don't stress. If you need to have some times off when completing the term allocation form, please ensure that consider a couple of things. For example, if you have a wedding in April and there is a block of rotation with your only core term in that period, we recommend preferencing that block of rotation lawyer. So medical workforce team create and manage the roster in liaison with head of departments. Our rostering officer work with you to try and accommodate all your requests, such as days off or any special roster pattern that you are required. With your rosters, if we can help you out, we definitely will. For example, if you have your partner's birthday on a weekend, which is in one of your core term, we are more than happy to try roster you around so this doesn't affect your intern requirements. And from term 3 2021 this year, we will publish our roster on Microsoft Teams so they are accessible from your mobile phone and home as well. So the most interesting topic, leave. As per AMA agreement, in every 12-month period, you will have 4 weeks of annual leave, 2 weeks of non-accruing professional development leave, and 1 week of accruing PDL, plus 10 days sick leave. You are more than welcome to apply for the leave you are entitled to for the clinical year. Most of our interns that applied for leave this year, they did get their leave approved. If you really need to take leave during your core term, we offer the flexibility of doing a term swap. However, if we have any spare staff like leave relief and we can help you at that way to swap your term with somebody else, we will definitely do that. So why us? We support the part-time opportunities. At the moment, we have 4 interns who are part-timers for the different reasons. We also support parental leave. Again, we have an intern who is one of our 2020 intern and currently on parental leave. However, she is coming back at the end of this year to complete her internship. As I mentioned several times, we do offer term swaps, and you can swap your terms throughout the year. Many of you might think that you're surgically inclined, and then when you do a full term in term 1 in general surgery, you might realize that no, we don't like it. It's not you. So we are more than happy for you to try and find a swap for that. We offer 3 years contract. With 3 years contracts, you can ensure you are working with an employer who cares about your well-being and your career progression. We listen and work with you to help you get time off and better rest breaks. We always talk to you through emails or phone calls. For example, if you request a block of leave where we cannot meet your leave request, then we will give you a call to work with you to get your leave approved. You will always exhaust every avenue to try and give your leave, sometimes by contacting head of departments to see if this can be approved uncovered or if it can be internally covered. And if it is not possible, then we need to work with you to give you another block of leave. It's really important that you do take sometimes some leave during your intern year. Some of the interns leave it to the last minutes, but or leave it to the second half of the clinical year. But it's really important that you use your leave as you go to stop you getting burned out. We're always trying to help you and make your life while working here as great as possible. We regularly meet with the AMA to sort out any issues. Our goal is to make you as happy as we can and look after you, because then it is more likely that you are staying here with us for a longer period. We regularly meet with the Stanley Medical Officer Society to work through any items that might need more attention. Sorry, Sylvia is here because she is one of our SMAs. So they sit at several committee of hospital and we work with them to get things done. At the moment, we are working with SMAS to put in some career streaming options for you when you become an RMO and above. And also through SMAS, we are listening to you and trying to work out the best options for leave for everybody. And that's it. Good luck with your application and hope to see you all next year here. Thank you.
This one? Hello. All right, hi guys, my name's Caitlin Cox and I'm joined here today by the lovely Dr. Emily Moran. We're the SMOS intern representatives and we're very excited to tell you what makes Fiona Stanley so special.
Would you like to click?
Oh. No.
Oh, no? Okay.
There's that one's missing.
Okay.
Okay.
That's fine. Okay, welcome to Fiona Stanley, the happiest place on earth for interns. We are here today to address all of your pre-internship ideas, concerns and expectations.
Concern number 1, will I have time to exercise?
Yes, you will. Fiona Stanley is a large tertiary hospital with multiple specialties across multiple wards, including separate buildings for the State Rehab Service and psychiatry. So your obliques will be chiselled after sharp corner turns with your wow, and your reflexes will be heightened after even 2 weeks of navigating around the dinner trolleys, wet floor signs, and your consultants. Fitness aside, the brilliant feature of WOWs and electronic notes is that every result is readily available on the ward round, and you can also use them to carry important things like dressings, consent forms, and your consultant's coffee. Caitlin, will I have time to eat lunch?
We have a very big food and coffee culture at Fiona Stanley. We're very lucky to have a full food court, including Subway, multiple caffeination stations, such as Icon, and a DCR, which is our doctor's common room, which is always stocked very well with snacks. In the DCR, we also have our own coffee machine. We get pizza on Fridays, and twice a week we have a really big delivery of sweet treats, including donuts, caramel slices, and brownies. So yes, Emily, we're very well fed.
Good.
But will I have time to travel, Emily, and see the world?
Oh yes, you'll be travelling to Rockingham and Fremantle. But also some really cool rotations in Albany and Broome as well. There are heaps of learning opportunities at the smaller hospitals and a really brilliant culture between the juniors, seniors and consultants. You will also be able to video link into the intern teaching on Fridays, so you won't miss anything. Caitlin, will I survive my first scary phone referral?
Yes, you will. We're not going to lie, the first time you make a phone call, you're going to feel like figure 1. Very scary, especially when you're figuring out how to talk to people on the phone and what information you actually need to collect. Your saving grace in the first few weeks can be the really good excuse of, I'm a new intern. But then after that, you'll be an expert, and we're very lucky that at Fiona Stanley, everyone on the phone is so kind, and they're very aware of how daunting it is to make phone calls as a fresh intern. We found that people are really keen to help you improve, and they'll even pat you on the back and congratulate you if you do a good job.
So there's a really positive culture of helping the juniors to grow and learn. This is me on my upper GI rotation, which was my first term with my lovely team. So everyone's really interested in developing your skills, and it makes such a difference to have supportive registrars and consultants backing you up, particularly for those phone referrals and ordering particular investigations. There's so many positive people at the hospital that we had to create a way to recognise all these brilliant people. So the SMOS Positive Vibes Awards celebrates the amazing juniors, seniors, switch operators and CT coordinators, shout out to Chris, who go above and beyond to make our lives easier. Will I survive my first day?
Yes, you will survive, and in time you'll even thrive as well. We're very lucky to have such amazing nurses, pharmacists and allied health team members who will always have your back. You've got easy access with the computers to ETG, AMH and clinical guidelines, and the collective knowledge of your very experienced team is so awesome as well. And more importantly, you've got access to the infectious diseases registrar who will save your bacon every time you try and swing the meropenem or the Tazocin hammer. Your studies at uni will have given you the perfect background to know where to look and who to ask for help.
So, I haven't seen this photo.
Where did that come from?
So your internship will be challenging but super rewarding. Going through it with high quality, supportive, kind and friendly people definitely makes a massive difference, and so does ready access to coffee. Never having to pick an outfit to wear is definitely a big perk as well. Your archers will never be so supported as when you wear Birkenstock clogs every day. So we can't wait to see you all at Fiona Stanley next year, and please feel free to come and have a chat to us after the presentations are done.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Sylvia. I'm one of the residents here, about one of 270, so I'm a rare breed. I'm also the SMOS president. So the SMOS is the Stanley Medical Officers Society. I'm sure at the other hospital information evenings you also heard from other junior doctor societies, and we all actually get on pretty well. I was at a dinner with them all on Tuesday night, hosted by the AMA, which had a lot of wine involved actually. So I just want to say, to start off with, I feel very privileged to talk to you tonight. I remember sitting in your position 24 months ago, and at that time I thought I was going to Royal Perth. Well, first of all I thought I was going to Charlie's, and then I thought I was going to Royal Perth, and then I thought, well, maybe Midland, and then I came to the Fiona Stanley evening and I thought, oh, I found home, which sounds a bit, but it felt like something clicked, and also very privileged to be amongst an amazing bunch of clinicians who have spoken tonight, including Oscar Aldridge, who probably doesn't remember being a fellow when I was a med student on ASU and took time out to teach us the acute surgical abdomen, and Ian Day, who has taught me more about subarachnoids than I've ever learnt before. So I'm here to tell you a bit about what is SMOS. So we are a variety of volunteers. We've got interns and we've got resis, regs, and we work to advocate, to represent, etc., etc. And we're here for the JMO's hierarchy of needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which this is my model. So snacks and coffee. So we keep the DCR sponsored food there. We also bought the alcoholic beverages for this evening. We work on payroll leave, term allocations, improving teaching, so we're very, very lucky to have very close relationships with med workforce, med ed, the executive, medical administration, DCS, lots and lots of different people in the hospital who want to help us and improve things and listen to us. Career advancement, so very, very cool things in the works for next year and for you guys into the future. Social events, small ones, big ones, so end of term parties that we host with other hospitals, I don't know, lots of things really. And then culture and wellbeing, which I feel like these words get thrown around a lot, and each hospital always says, oh, we really care about your wellbeing and really care that you have a good experience here. But Fiona Stanley, in a very new and refreshing way, does acknowledge that out of everyone who are in the room, the junior doctors are the only ones who have ever been junior doctors at that hospital. And so they know that we face challenges and things like that, because we are a very new hospital, and they want to listen to us, and they recognise us as the experts in being a junior doctor at Fiona Stanley. And so it's very humbling position to be in, to be able to say on behalf of a huge cohort of junior doctors, these are some of the things we'd like to see done. And then to have people like Paul Forden, our CEO, and Prof Jones and things like that say, alrighty, let's get the ball rolling and let's get it done. So that's very lovely. And we're working towards building a really positive culture, and it's really nice to be able to walk down the corridor and as you progress through your career and say hello to all of these different people, consultants, regs, other interns and things like that, and people are really invested in you and want to know how you're going. And to be able to, I often after a night shift will go up to talk to the med workforce guys and have a bit of a chin wag, which I'm sure distracts them greatly from what they're actually supposed to be doing, but I quite enjoy it. So they're sort of stuck with me, unfortunately. If you're, this is just a bit more about what we're doing. So there's this very cool project that we're working on at the moment, which is headed by the executive, which is looking at things like leave management, term allocations, potentially things like career streaming, lots of different things. And SMOS works with you guys and for you guys, and is very privileged to serve the community. So we will go and talk to Med Workforce about general problems that have been identified and potential solutions. So cool things I think about Fiona Stanley, almost entirely supportive registrars. I think I can count on one hand the bad experiences I've had with regis who now actually work at other hospitals. So, so it would probably be closer to 100% now. So, it is a very, you get to know everyone. So Andreas was one of the AMU regis when I was an intern, and I was incredibly terrified of him when I was on my ED term because I thought, he's really scary. And then I remember having to call him, and he was so nice on the phone. He made that referral very, very easy, and he probably accepted a patient he probably shouldn't have, but I appreciated it. It's a very friendly environment. There's nothing better than talking to CT Chris, who we've already spoken about, who's the CT coordinator, and who's like an amazing, he's just like such a beautiful human being. And there's a few awesome help desk people called Nigel, so you like call switch and he goes, hi, it's Nigel speaking, and you just have literally a 10-minute conversation with Nigel about things, and then kind of forget who you were actually supposed to be talking to. And ward clerks, physios and stuff, there's a real team atmosphere and everything like that. Supportive RMOs who want to help interns. I think us, the resis, we want to see you guys succeed, and we want to upskill you and teach you new skills and new things and things that we wish we had known along the way, because in the end you're going to be the residents, and we want to see you guys teaching the interns and teaching the med students and things like that. So that's sort of our aim as resis. And the hospital is really investing in junior doctors. There's because in the end we are the registrars and the consultants. They want people who interned here, who regged here, who are now working here as consultants in 10, 20 years, and who are invested in the culture here. So this is my, if you're from Notre Dame, you've probably already heard this. This is my completely needless little graphic I've put in here about picking where to intern. So we know that picking where to is sort of, you want to pick somewhere that's convenient. Commuting for more than 30 minutes in one direction per day is not really good for you long term. And so you either pick the hospital that you live close to, that hopefully you vibe with, or you pick the hospital that you vibe with and either consider moving or consider putting up with the drive. I lived close to a hospital when I was living in Claremont in 4th year as a medical student, and I decided to move because I didn't vibe that hospital, and it's okay if you do vibe that hospital. We all vibe different things, but I decided to move. I thought that was more because I knew that Fish was where I wanted to go. And I also think that Fish has really good vibes, and I think we want the best interns, and if you want to go somewhere where you'll succeed and you're empowered and where if you put in the hard work, you'll see the dividends, then this is the hospital to pick. And my last slide, so reasons why you should come here: fancy technology, very shiny, which is there's something to be said for being in a nice, very clean environment, knowing where the wards are. Everything's very laid out. If someone says, can you come to 7D quickly? Yeah, no worries, it's not too far away. And great views. I've had the Burns unit has amazing sunrises. So often when I was on hospital out of hours, like ward cover, would go up there with a coffee, which at 6 a.m. and watch the sunrise and have a little bit of a peaceful moment. Bosses, so consultants, heads of department, heads of service and exec who are invested in you because they know that we are the future of the organisation, and they want us to stay here, and they want us to invest in the organisation, and they'll certainly invest in you. And a culture based around continual improvement, self-evaluation, and it's sort of evolving. We don't always get it right. Not many hospitals consistently get it right every year. But the culture here is really about figuring out what we can do better year by year, moment by moment. And that's what I'm always very impressed with. And they want to listen to us. So I was meeting with one of the exec members today, and I said, I think maybe there's a few things that we could work on with with the hospital out of hours team to make it like a really good term for residents. And he said, yep, jot them down and come back and we'll have a real chat about it and nut it out a bit, which is amazing. And then I still remember this moment when I was talking to one of the pastoral care guys when I was an intern, and it kind of is a good epitome of what the culture's like here. So I was calling to say, can you please come up and spend some time with the family? The grandma's had a catastrophic brain bleed and is not expected to live much longer. And so I was like, they were requesting some pastoral care input, and we think that's really important. And I was on AMU, and it was really busy, and it was crazy, and it was a bit of a startling thing to deal with as an intern. And then the pastoral care guy goes, oh yeah, but how are you doing? How are you finding things at the moment? How are you finding things? And I almost cried because I was just like, oh, it's just such a nice thing, and I'm fine, but like how lovely. It's positive vibes, support at all levels. Life doesn't stop when you're an intern, when you're a resi, when you're a reg. People get sick, you'll get pregnant if that's anatomically possible for you, or your partner might get pregnant, or your surrogate, or whatever iteration of pregnancy looms on the horizon for you. Family members will pass away, loved ones will go through traumatic things, and you want a hospital that recognises that you're still a human being and not a number cruncher that can touch type really quick. So MedWorkforce and MedEd really do care. I've certainly experienced that firsthand as an intern. Nothing like the director of MedEd last year having a conversation with me over the phone about things that it was quite a funny conversation, and he was just so caring before Prof Jones started. So life is hard as a doctor. Long hours, all your mates are working shift work, you never bloody see them. It takes 3 months and a Google Calendar to chart out everyone's shift work to pick one night where you might all be off at once. You have a high cognitive demand, you're constantly learning, and you have a high emotional load, and the communication skills that you require as a junior doctor these days is significant. And you will go home and you'll be like, I've got a thumping headache, and you realise you haven't drunk any water the whole day, and then, oh, my bladder really hurts, I haven't peed the whole day either. And so it is a lot expected of you. It's a fantastic career. I've never regretted a single day being a doctor. I've regretted certain seconds and maybe certain minutes, but overall I've never regretted days. And I think Fiona Stanley is really based on teamwork. It's one of our core traits that we rely on. And so pick us. We'll look after you. And I say that as a representative of the junior doctor community who are already here. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much for taking the time to attend. We hope you found it a useful session this evening. We hope you've got the information you needed to make choices for the future, and absolutely wish you all the best with your future careers. Thank you so much.